Paul Walker's death impacted the Fast and Furious franchise hugely, and a lot of things had to be changed. Initially, the ending was set to lead into another sequel, but all that changed after Paul's death. The movie's director, James Wan, shared that the initial ending was quite different and would have set up an insane story for the next movie. Since Paul Walker's untimely death in 2013, 3 more Fast and Furious movies have been released. Vin Diesel also recently announced that Fast X Part 2 is set to hit theaters in 2025. Even though Paul's character, Brian O'Connor, isn't actively part of the story anymore, he's still remembered. Paul had completed most of his scenes for Furious 7 before his death, which allowed the filmmakers to preserve much of his contribution. However, they had to tweak the main storyline and craft a new ending to adapt to the tragedy. They managed this by editing some existing footage of Paul and his brothers, Cody and Caleb, who had filled in to complete his remaining scenes. However, details about the original planned ending have surfaced, hinting at what might have been Brian's future in the franchise. To start with, we could have seen something on Brian's character arc. Before Paul Walker's death, the film was set to offer a deeper look into the life of Brian O'Connor, a character loved for his loyalty and thrill-seeking adventures. The movie producers planned to explore Brian's new journey into fatherhood touchingly, showing the audience his inner conflict as he tries to balance the excitement of his high-speed pursuits with the responsibilities of being a new dad. In this alternative storyline, the film would have shown Brian wrestling with a heartfelt and relatable issue: how to reconcile his adventurous spirit with his growing family obligations. This version of the story would also have given us a look into his past as a federal agent and his strong connections with his fearless friends, while showcasing his personal evolution and the challenges of adjusting to a more settled life. Since Brian survived then, it was more likely that he will again. This original vision aimed to showcase a universal theme of growth and maturity through Brian O'Connor's journey. As Brian confronted the consequences of his past actions, the audience would have seen his emotional and psychological development unfold. This would affirm his reputation as a figure of courage and loyalty, and position him as a symbol of personal growth and responsibility, a hero many could look to. Focusing more on Brian's personal growth could have added emotional depth to the film, presenting a more mature side of the franchise. Some fans have always complained that the franchise had nothing to offer besides guns and chase, but this would have completely flipped that narrative. Sadly, we never got to see it, but it sure would have been incredible to see the life of one of the top characters amidst fast-paced action. Speaking about action, the movie is known for its crazy actions and stunts, but sometimes it is also known for the theme of family and emotions. Fast and Furious 7 could have explored that even more. The movie would have taken an emotional direction by exploring the theme of retirement, creating a scenario where the thrill of the high-speed chases they had always enjoyed and the harsh reality of life's limitations meet. With Brian O'Connor embracing fatherhood, his perspective on life changes dramatically, especially considering the risks and potential consequences of their adrenaline-driven adventures. His new role as a dad wouldn't just influence his choices, it would also act as a driving force for change among his friends, prompting other crew members to reconsider their paths. The film's storyline would have been made richer with heartfelt discussions and hot arguments among the characters, focusing on whether they could leave their infamous pasts behind. These conversations would show the internal struggles and the emotional weight they also face, portraying their journey toward potential retirement as both necessary and mixed with a little sadness. We eventually got a sad ending still, although it was what nobody wanted. There were not many changes after Paul's death. While he would not have completely left his team by the film's end in the original plan, his priorities would have shifted. By the conclusion, Brian would have realized that his growing family with Mia was his top priority. Ensuring he was always there for them would have been a central part of how the movie's ending would shape his future. If you remember correctly, the climax of Fast and Furious 7 was centered around Brian and Dominic Toretto's team trying to shut down the God's Eye. This advanced computer program could locate anyone on Earth. However, unlike the final version, in which the film hints at the end of Brian's involvement, the original plan was to set up the team's next adventure. While the details remain a secret, especially regarding how screenwriter Chris Morgan initially intended to lay the groundwork for another mission, he hinted that the team's journey was far from over. During the development of Furious 7, Vin Diesel teased that the movie was meant to kick off a new trilogy of films. This suggests that Furious 7 could have led directly into the next film's plot, The Fate of the Furious. Morgan mentioned that Dom's crew would start leaning more towards an outlaw lifestyle, which could imply a shift in their missions since they continued to work closely with Mr. Nobody and his agency. This twist in the story would have kept the audience excited for what's next, mixing high-stakes action with the promise of new challenges, something everyone looks for in Fast and Furious. Despite the various endings that Fast and Furious 7 could have had, each version was to lay the groundwork for the future of the Fast and Furious series. The subsequent films might have looked quite different if Paul Walker had still been with us. Interestingly, the producers have found a way to keep Paul Walker's presence alive in the films. Many of us thought the franchise might end with his passing. How could it continue without one of its key stars? Does it feel right to watch a new release? Yet, the series has continued, showing that the saga of fast cars isn't quite ready to hit the brakes. If you watched the film without knowing about Paul Walker's tragic passing, you might never realize he was absent from some scenes. This seamless illusion was made possible by the incredible work of the VFX team from Peter Jackson's Weta Digital. In 2015, Joe Lettery shared how they managed this feat. Initially, the team thought they could create just one digital scene with Walker, but they weren't sure how they would wrap up the rest of the movie. This challenge took a hopeful turn when Paul's brothers, Caleb and Cody Walker, who closely resemble him, stepped forward to assist in completing the film. Their involvement and advanced visual effects allowed the movie to give Paul Walker a proper and respectful send-off. This careful blending of technology and personal touches resulted in a respectful and genuine tribute rather than a mere attempt to capitalize on tragedy. As Dom and Brian drive side by side, Brian then drives off into the sunset in his white car, alive and at peace. This scene not only honored Walker's legacy, but also captured the hearts of viewers, making it a powerful moment of closure. You might think that the Fast and Furious series would have wrapped up with the 7th film, especially after the loss of Paul Walker. What more could be done after so many prequels, and how could the movies feel complete without him? Yet, the franchise didn't stop. 3 more films have been released since Walker's passing. Each one has had to creatively address why Brian O'Connor isn't around, which has sometimes felt a bit awkward, but they've kept him alive, remaining a vital part of the franchise. How have the producers been able to do this? Easy! For instance, at the end of Fast 9, his iconic Nissan Skyline rolls up to the family barbecue, giving Brian a tangible presence in the scene without needing to recreate Walker's likeness. As the group gathers around for a meal at Dom's house, it seems like Brian might not make it this time. But just then, the distinct sound of a car engine fills the air, and a blue Nissan speeds up the street. Dom turns and smiles, recognizing the familiar rev. It's unmistakably Brian. The Nissan then pulls into the driveway, signaling Brian's arrival just in time to join the family dinner. This moment is meaningful and impactful, as it subtly acknowledges Brian's ongoing role in the Fast and Furious family without needing him physically there. In Fast X, the series brings Paul Walker back through a clever use of flashbacks to Fast 5, where Brian and Dom are seen pulling off a daring vault heist. This flashback not only brings Walker back into the narrative, but also sets up the new movie's plot. The film introduces Dante Reyes, who is revealed to have been present during the events of the heist. Now, years later, Dante is driven by a desire for vengeance over his father's death, targeting everyone Dom cares about. Amidst this new threat, it's mentioned that Brian and Mia are aware of the danger and have gone into hiding, keeping their presence felt in the unfolding drama. However, the conclusion of the Fast saga faces a significant challenge with Paul Walker's character, Brian O'Connor. The storyline developed in Fast X suggests that Brian's presence is crucial. The new villain, Dante, is out for revenge against everyone involved in the Fast Five heist that led to his father's death. This creates a notable dilemma since Brian was a key participant in that heist and is still considered alive within the Fast and Furious universe. Dante, portrayed as a relentless criminal mastermind who pays attention to every detail, is unlikely to ignore Brian's role in the events that cost his father his life. This relentless pursuit means the filmmakers must find a way to address Brian's involvement without Walker portraying him, presenting a complex challenge in how to respectfully and logically handle his character's storyline in the face of such a direct threat. Some fans think the only way to handle this problem is to say he died off-screen. However, this idea doesn't sit well with many. Brian has been a key figure in the series, and quietly removing him might upset many fans. But the filmmakers are aware of these concerns, and in 2023, Vin Diesel promised that the upcoming Fast 11 would provide a fitting tribute to the late Paul Walker and his beloved character, Brian. While we don't have many details about the next movie yet, it's clear that the team is committed to making Brian's final appearance memorable. Considering the efforts made to authentically include Paul Walker in Furious 7, they'll likely use similar methods to give Brian a memorable farewell as the series wraps up. What do you think it's going to be? And do you think things would have been different if Paul was still alive? Let us know your thoughts in the comments sections below.